Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is January 18th, coming up on 9:45 a.m. here. Looking at the visible satellite imagery here, you can see we've got a weak system, barely perceptible, sliding mostly east of the Rockies here, bringing some precip to portions of western Washington, Cascades, eastern Washington, and on into Idaho and Montana there. You can see our next system lining up here for the Wednesday night, Thursday front that'll move through our area. Should stir up our air pretty good, at least for the time being, and then we'll go back into a stagnant pattern after that. And then we'll take a look later on at the extended and see if that pattern is going to break down. Are we going to change into a colder pattern or not? We'll take a look at what the models have to say about that. So here we are looking at the GOES 16 water vapor imagery here. You can see that storm system that brought snowfall to areas of the northeast now moving off the lower 48. You can see the cloud shield moving up over towards Greenland, up and out of the area there. And our weak system moving down east of the Rockies is here, kind of bringing some moisture in with it in response to that weak troughing going through here. And if we look into the radar for the region here, you can see that wintry precip, this mostly snow going on over here in western Montana and stretching all the way back into eastern Washington. Now that should be ending mostly south of I-90 by now. A couple inches possible for Stevens Pass today, and just some plain old very light rain for western Washington. This may not be reaching the ground here in places of the southern Willamette Valley and down through the Medford area here. And you can see we've got some dense fog advisories and some freezing fog advisories across the region. We'll look at that in a little bit more detail here. This is current. You can see the Arctic high pushing down and the low pressure in response to that Arctic high with the troughing going back towards eastern Washington, spawning some of that precipitation. Put this into motion. You can see the system move off to the east here, and that Arctic high just stays mainly east of the Rockies. You can really see the terrain feature of the Rocky Mountains there as that Arctic ice slides down to the east. And then you'll see our next system. This is going to spawn a cold front for us here through western Washington and portions of western Oregon, and possibly it'll stir up the atmosphere on the west sides. Not so much on the east sides, but maybe enough to break up the fog for a bit anyway. And then you see that ridging kind of build back over the region there for some extended foggy weather potential coming up here. But then we might be looking at a pattern change at the end of the month we'll look at here coming up. So if you take a look here, this is the temperature at 10,000 feet. So you can see some of that cold air does extend off of this dome, this Arctic high, this Arctic air as it moves. You can see a little bit getting over eastern Washington as it slides off to the east. And then you can see our next frontal system here, this lobe of cold air. Notice that just kind of come over us there for Thursday morning, and then kick off to the east also with a convergence zone behind it, possibly Thursday afternoon. We'll look at that here in a minute. And check out this cold air mass. Look at how it just kind of lines up east of the Rockies. Not much making it over at the surface, even though it is chilly into portions of eastern Washington. The valleys are warmer. You can see that banking up against the Rocky Mountains here and slide down to the south and east, and eventually out of the area and start to warm up a bit there in western Montana into Wednesday evening. But heads up, if you're traveling eastbound on I-90, you could be getting some wintry precipitation as some snowfall all the way from eastern Washington through Idaho into Montana. So heads up if you're traveling out that way. Here is the precipitation looking into today. You can see the light rain around western Washington, and I don't know how much of this is going to reach the surface in southern Oregon there. It might not be reaching much. You see this going through down the Medford area here, but you can see this some snow continuing out there, Idaho Panhandle off into western Montana. And then you see the next arrival for the frontal system coming in Wednesday afternoon, bringing some light precip, western Washington, Willamette Valley, maybe not so much in the south portion of the valley, but you'll see that front kind of move through there, and then a convergence zone signature on the back side of this through the Puget Sound. So this isn't going to be a big precipitation maker, even though the snow levels will rise a bit with a arrival of this system. It shouldn't be a big deal. There should be no flooding issues with this. Now looking at the NAM, here's the winds here. You can see, I'll speed it up here and we can see the next frontal system. Here it comes. And as that comes through, you notice the shift and the kind of lull there over the Seattle area where the wind's going through the strait and through the Chehalis Gap and meeting the little convergence zone signature for the Puget Sound here. You can see how the westerlies are making it through the gorge there into eastern Washington, maybe warming them up a hair. And you see some of that wind moving through that Ellensburg Gap area. That's why they set the wind farm up out there and those wind turbines to take advantage of those westerly winds when they move through the Cascades there. A little factoid for you. Here's the European. As we go towards, there's the front coming in there Wednesday night. And then it also shows that convergence zone signature behind. This one has more of the central sound signature and a bullseye there on the Cascades. Maybe you'll get a few inches, maybe 6 to 12 inches actually, looking at this here. But Snoqualmie Pass is right on the border of that, so maybe just between Snoqualmie and Stevens Pass there. And that would be occurring on Thursday evening with that convergence zone activity. So looking at the region here, you see the winter weather advisories there for western Montana. They don't have one up for eastern Washington. That precip looks like it's coming to an end finally. You see the freezing fog and the dense fog advisories, air stagnation, and maybe this front will be clearing it out a bit. Here's the Medford area. Look at this freezing fog, dense fog, air stagnation advisory. Playing back the wind here. This is just off the surface, about 2,500 feet. We're going to look at southern Oregon here because it doesn't look like they clear out much. You can see the wind going through today. Not much activity down here in southern Oregon. A little bit of mixing maybe through the Willamette Valley there you'll see. As we get towards the next frontal system coming in here, you'll notice the wind start to pick up Willamette Valley up through the Puget Sound. As this front kicks in, look, it's just not really mixing out much down in the Medford area, southern Oregon. So heads up down there, because you guys we're all going back into a ridge, and you guys might not be clearing out much. So the air stagnation might be pretty bad if we're not even clearing out through this next frontal system, and then we go back to the ridge. So that could get kind of ugly. The fog could really be settling in down there in southern Oregon. Talking about eastern Washington now, Spokane area. You can see that there's mountain pass snow expected today, some wet snow accumulations, and this can go on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So heads up if you're traveling eastbound through eastern Washington. With that next frontal system coming in on Thursday too, you're going to get, depending on where you are, valleys versus mountains, rain, snow, and even a freezing rain possibility. Some of the northern valleys and some breezy winds for east slopes of the Cascades, East Columbia Basin, West Plains, and the Palouse. So heads up for that. Going into Pendleton, you can see the freezing fog advisories. I think you guys are getting pretty used to that. The lower areas here, Yakima, Ellensburg, Hermiston, Enterprise. The good thing is some of this will be getting cleared out on the Thursday system, especially for the east slopes of the Cascades. And you see the dense fog and air stagnation problems that we're going through now. And this is that Arctic system moving down the east slopes of the Rockies here, bringing up to a couple inches there. Watch out if you're traveling on Highway 12 or I-90 as you go eastbound, especially through Montana. This is all going to be below freezing, especially the higher elevations could be getting 6 or more inches depending on where you are exactly. So just a heads up for travelers there. And the Arctic air Tuesday, gusty northeast winds, decreasing temperatures, local enhancement of snow and local blowing snow also. So heads up for that. Here's the same graphic there. Seattle, pretty quiet for now until that frontal system gets here Wednesday night into Thursday. Clean out some of this air and get this residual stagnant air out of here. And then we're going to go back to the ridge after that. So here's the extended here. Looking way out, you can see we're pretty warm until about Saturday. Then we start cooling down. We really get stagnant underneath that ridge. So you can see some of these temperatures down around freezing some of these mornings. So we're going to get pretty foggy. There's a lot of moisture still in the atmosphere and on the ground, all the recent precipitation we've got in the last few weeks. And then we get a little bit colder as you go into later January. Notice some of these ensembles introducing a bit of Arctic air to the region here on the European. And we'll take a look at that again here on the GFS. The GFS has a few more runs with some even colder Arctic air going late January into February. But again, you can see the majority of these runs do not have Arctic air. So this is something we're still watching. This is still off in Fantasyland, so don't need to start planning for this yet. European weeklies here, you can see we dive down into negative territory on the Pacific North American Oscillation, which just means we have more ridging going on over the North Pacific Ocean, which tends to give us our northerly flow, which at least introduces a chance for Arctic air to get into our region. So there is that potential still late January into early February. We're just watching it still out in Fantasyland. I know we've been talking about this for a while, but it is getting closer now and it keeps showing the signal. So you know, you can be cautiously optimistic if you're a snow lover. And here is the just the regular European run actually, or the European ensemble, sorry. This is going into early February here too, and you can see we are going into negative territory beginning of February. So there is that signal for it. And when I say ridging over the North Pacific, I mean out here. So you can see we've got Washington, Oregon, Idaho here, British Columbia. When you get the ridging out here, you get the north flow on that side, and it allows that possibility for systems to move down. And if they take the right trajectory, they can bring us wintry precip on the west side of the Cascades. So that's where we're at today. And yeah, hopefully you guys are liking these videos still. Keep bringing the feedback back, and I will be updating things as we go. I'll have another video out tomorrow. We'll talk about the next system in more detail. We'll look at the big ridge setting up too, and we'll look to see if there's any chance that ridge can get broken down early. So, all right, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you later.